I'm Sam from GForce, and this is impOSCar3. In this video, I'll walk you through every aspect of the synthesizer, so that you can make the most of this complex instrument. We'll be covering the signal flow, followed by the envelopes and modulation, keyboard controls, and the effects, before moving on to the Wavetable Editor and User LFO Editor. When you open impOSCar, you'll be greeted with this preset, Blissed Out. Blissed Out uses a number of impOSCar's more advanced features, so let's take a step back and initialize the instrument. To do this, we open the browser using the header bar, and then click on the Init button to load the initialize patch. By default, impOSCar loads up a sawtooth wave in each of its two oscillators, and has its oscillator balance set to 50-50 mix. Let's move the balance all the way over to 100% of oscillator 1 and go through the waveforms available to us. Clicking on the screen will cycle through the waveforms. Clicking on the arrow in the top right corner will list the waveforms in a drop-down menu. Let's start at the top with a triangle. Then we have the sawtooth, followed by the square, then the pulse wave, then the PWM waveform, whose pulse width modulation is controlled by the knob below, you can hear that we're actually bringing in a PWM amount. Pulse width modulation is fixed frequency. We then have a full organ wave, a harpsichord wave, a waveform called strong lead, a double pulse, a gritty waveform, and finally the wavetable. With the wavetable selected, the Wavetable Edit button appears underneath the screen. Clicking on this opens up the Wavetable Editor, which we'll come back to later. The pulse width / wavetable position knob now controls the position of the wavetable. The wavetable modulation underneath allows you to assign an LFO amount to the wavetable position. Let's move back to the initial triangle wave and bring up the oscillator balance in the mix section to 50-50. The second oscillator has a couple of extra controls compared to oscillator 1, both related to the pitch. Firstly, we have the octave shift, then the detune, which goes in an octave either way. Let's leave that there for now. Back in the mix section, we also have an oscillator to noise balance. and a switch to choose between white and pink noise. Let's bring that down to around there. Underneath that, we have ring mod controls. Allowing us to select full, half, or no ring modulation. We'll leave that off for now. The signal will now pass through the filter section. Let's start with the filter frequency all the way up, and then bring it down. Let's add a touch of resonance so that we can bring out the character of the filter. This is a 4-pole low-pass filter that's achieved by using both of impOSCar's dual filters in the same configuration. There's a number of different configurations we can use. We have the 4-pole low-pass, bandpass and high-pass, 2-pole low-pass, bandpass and high-pass, and then combinations of low-pass and bandpass, low-pass and high-pass, and bandpass and high-pass. Let's have a little listen to each of them. Firstly, the 4-pole low-pass. As you can hear, the resonance can get quite intense. Now the bandpass. We'll bring the resonance back down. Now the high pass. Two-pole variants of each. Now the dual filter modes. Here we have a low pass and band pass together. It's a good point here to introduce the separation feature. It will allow a cut-off offset between the two filters. Low pass and high pass. and bandpass and high pass. The filter section also features keyboard tracking and drive. Let's add a bit more drive to this signal after changing it back to a low pass filter and removing any separation. The filter section also has a couple of dedicated modulation inputs. There's an LFO blend and LFO amount that feed the frequency, along with an envelope amount and envelope selection buttons that also apply to the frequency. Now's a good time to look at the envelopes and LFOs and general modulation of impOSCar3. impOSCar3 has two envelopes, both ADSR. The second envelope has a delay, allowing you to postpone the envelope's start point after a key has been pressed. Above the envelopes, we can control their playing modes. They can either be triggered singularly, which re-triggers regardless of whether the envelope has finished. Only one will repeat, only envelope 2 will repeat, or both envelope 1 and 2 can repeat. Let's set this to have envelope 2 repeating. We can also set the envelope rate from 1 beat in a bar up to 64 beats in a bar. Let's leave that at 8 beats in a bar. And then let's set our gate time to 50%. Now let's add some of envelope 2 to our filter frequency and bring that frequency down so we can hear the results more clearly. Let's turn up the envelope rate. Let's also alter the values of the envelope. Let's bring up our filter frequency, bring down our envelope amount to a low negative value, bring down the envelope rate to give us a less extreme result. Let's alter envelope 1 to give our sound a bit more character. We can now start to add LFOs to our sound as well. Both LFO 1 and 2 on impOSCar3 are identical. They contain a number of waveforms, just like the oscillators, and also contain user-editable LFO waveforms, just like the wavetables on the oscillators. Why don't we apply some LFO to the filter frequency now. The different LFO waveforms are triangle, triangle 3 steps, triangle 5 step, sawtooth, four-step saw, eight-step saw, square, pattern 1, pattern 2, guitar, and a copy of the filter envelope. In this case, envelope 2 is being applied again, offsetting envelope 2. While this may not seem particularly useful for controlling the filter, when we use the LFO in other areas, having that extra envelope does become a great sound design tool. We have a random waveform, and finally the user LFO. Again, we'll come back to this section later. The user LFO position controls, as you would expect, the position of the user LFO wavetable. The rate controls the rate at which the LFO plays. Intro controls the fade-in rate of the LFO. We then have various sync options: MIDI, free, lock, or clock. Let's leave ours on free. We also have a keyboard re-trigger option that will determine whether the LFO is re-triggered every time a key is pressed. Now that we know our LFOs and envelopes, let's see how we can apply them to the synthesizer. We have an Aux Mod section and a Pitch Mod section, which allow us to combine envelopes and LFOs to control either the pitch or a number of other destinations. Let's now use the Aux Mod to send a blend of the two LFOs to one of our destinations. You can see the controls for the Aux Mod are as follows. We have an envelope amount, bipolar, with the selection of whether we want envelope 1 or envelope 2. We then have an LFO amount, also bipolar, and we can choose whether we want to sum or multiply the LFOs and the envelopes together. We then have an LFO blend amount. This controls how much of each LFO is in the signal. Let's try this with oscillator 2 pitch and cycle through the different destinations available. Let's change to pulse width waves for both oscillators. Modulation of pulse width 1. Modulation of pulse width 2, and now both of them together. You can also control filter separation. Filter resonance. Oscillator mix. Noise mix. Let's bring in our envelope negative amount, reduce our LFO positive amount, go back to filter Q, go back to a low pass filter, remove our separation and keyboard tracking, bring up our frequency and play with the results a bit. impOSCar3 allows you to create complex modulations quickly and easily using the Aux and Pitch Mods, but it has a number of other inputs as well. You can use the Modwheel, Aftertouch, velocity and expression inputs to drive a wide range of modulation destinations. Let's look at the Modwheel and Aftertouch destinations now. They are drive, filter frequency, filter separation, filter Q, oscillator 1 table position, same for oscillator 2, LFO 1 table position, same for LFO 2, LFO 1 rate and LFO 2 rate. There's pitch amount, this is the LFO amount within the pitch mod. Filter amount, this is the LFO amount within the LFO 2 filter frequency mod. an aux amount, which is the LFO amount within the aux mod. The expression input has the same destinations as the Modwheel and Aftertouch, while the velocity input has a further 4 destinations to enable impOSCar3 patch support. These are attack, release, drive scale, and envelope 2 peak. With modulation covered, let's have a look at some of the other controls available to us. There's an Arpeggiator, a chord generator, some pan controls, Unison and polyphony, and then at the end we have our range of effects. Let's strip back our modulation and return to the raw sound of the oscillators passing through the filter. We can quickly remove everything by double-clicking on the dials to reset them to their default positions. Now let's apply some arpeggiation. We can move up, down, or random. Let's move up. We can also apply the up, down, and random to the octave mode as well. Let's put that on random and enable +1, +2, and -1. Let's bring our rate down to 4 beats in bar, and let's play a simple chord. We can choose to use the arpeggiator either based on the pitch of the notes that played or the order in which they're played. Let's select that, bring up the rate, make our arpeggiator up, down, bring down our envelope values, turn on hold, and let's have a play around. Very nice. Let's have a look at the chord mode now. Let's remove some of our modulation, just so the sound is back to a bit more of a standard sound. To enable chord mode, we hold down the chord that we want and click the chord button. That chord is now stored. And ready for you to play. Let's select C major. There's a large number of keys available, every note in major, harmonic, melodic, and natural. Let's go with D sharp natural. The chord that we have played in is offset and forced to fit into the key that we have chosen. Stacked and classic modes within the chord section refer to how polyphony is handled while using chords. First is classic. Which adds individual keys as you play along with your chord. Then there's stacked. which applies a copy of the chord every time you hold down a new key until your polyphony is reached, and then voice stealing begins. Let's disable chord mode by again clicking the chord button. Both the Arpeggiator and chord can be locked so that when you switch patches, their settings remain. Let's have a look at the glide and unison options. Let's first set our polyphony to mono, choose a normal glide, and set it to about 0.8 seconds. There are a number of glide types within impOSCar3. Let's have a listen to the others. First is the auto, which doesn't apply to the first note. Then there's glissando, which is quantized to notes. Let's turn the glide time up for that one. Then there's normal fixed. Auto fixed. And glissando fixed. Let's turn the glide time back to normal and bring it down to a sensible range. Now let's give the unison a go. You can have up to 8 voice poly unison. Let's give that a go. We then have spread and detune of those unison voices. This is of course stereo spread. A positive value in the spread pans the voices in the stereo field. A negative value randomizes the place of the voices in the stereo field. The glide spread mode works in conjunction with the glide for the keyboard. With glide spread off, we get a uniform glide between all of the 8 voices. With glide spread on mild, there is a slight divergence in the glide time for each voice. With the glide spread at wild, that divergence is increased. Let's disable the unison. Turn ourselves back to a 4-voice poly. And open up the pan spread. You can see that the pan spread mode is set from left to right. There are other modes available. These are random, alternate, and pseudo-random. The final mode is dynamic. Let's bring down the spread on our pan, change it to random, bring our glide time down, and now we can have a look at the effects. Firstly, we have a chorus, which has depth, rate, and amount controls, along with 4 different modes. It's great for adding thickness to any sound. Next we have a delay. The delay has both high pass and low pass filtering, gate length control, feedback and length that are independent for both left and right channels, and independent mix for the left and right as well. There are sync, crossfeed, and link controls. Next we have the reverb. This has controls for pre-delay, size, decay, and modulation frequency and depth, a bipolar filter, and mix control. The reverb also comes with 5 presets. Number 1 is a slapback, number 2 is a small reverb, 3 is medium, 4 is large, and 5 is huge. Let's go through them now. Below the main panel of impOSCar3 we have a number of other controls. We have visual representations of our pitch bend, which can also be set to independent amounts using the pitch bend controls up on the main panel. And our Modwheel. We have a volume control, a master output, octave switching, and a hold button. To the right of the keyboard we have our 4 macros. These allow you to control multiple parameters at once. Let's assign one. All we do is simply click the cross to the right hand side of the macro, drag it over the parameter we want to control, and then right click that parameter to apply a macro amount. We can do this to multiple parameters, so we just drag again, right click to where we want that change to be. Let's apply it to one more and bring in LFO modulation of our filter. Let's have a listen. When we turn our macro, our frequency drops, our Q grows, and the amount of LFO applied to the frequency increases. Many parameters are macro controllable. Let's try setting one of the effects. Now as we apply our macro, we'll also increase the amount of reverb. Macros allow you to make sweeping changes to your sound. If you ever need to change your macro assignments, simply click the number here. You are able to remove individual assignments or remove them all. Macros can be CC assigned, allowing you to map them to any standard MIDI controller. Now that we've covered everything on the front, let's reinitialize and look at the Wavetable and User LFO editors. Let's start by increasing our filter frequency, changing the oscillator balance all the way to oscillator 1, and then selecting Wavetable from the oscillator list. As mentioned before, clicking on Wavetable Edit will open up this Wavetable Editor window. Let's go through the Wave Editor window section by section. In the header we have the ability to select what we're editing, whether that's the wavetable of oscillator 1 or 2, or the user waveform of LFO 1 or 2. We then have the ability to load and save our work. Clicking on the load screen brings up a preset browser in which wavetables are organized by their character. We have characters such as aggressive, bright, clean, dark, dirty, harmonic, and soft. Let's load up our init wavetable by clicking the init button. The last two options in the header are the ability to revert any changes we've made to the wavetable, or get the wavetable from the other oscillator or LFO. Down the left-hand side, we have the most useful controls from the main UI replicated for easy access. These are wavetable position, LFO modulation of the wavetable position, and oscillator balance. On the right-hand side, we have the ability to select our morph mode, choosing between crossfade, which mixes between the two waveforms based on their frame data, or spectral, which mixes between 2 points based on their harmonic data. Below that, we have our tools, which we will use to build our own waveforms. The main window allows us to create or edit wavetables in two different ways. The first is using the previously mentioned tools combined with an X and Y grid division. The second is using the harmonic sliders below. The harmonic sliders in previous versions of impOSCar were limited to 24, but have now been doubled to 48. Let's take a simple sine wave and edit its harmonic content. We are very quickly able to morph the sine into something rich in harmonic content. Now let's try using the tools. If we set our grid to 1 by 1, and then choose the sine wave tool, we're back to a single sine wave with a single harmonic. Let's split our X divisions into 2 and continue using the sine tool. We now have a double frequency sine wave that just uses the second harmonic. Let's divide even further and start using more complex tools. We can, at any time while editing via the tools, also begin to edit the harmonic data using the sliders. This allows us to add extra harmonic character to otherwise simple tones. If we're happy with this single frame, we can begin to expand on the wavetable. There are 256 frames in the wavetable. These are represented in the wavetable window bar. I can click on any frame to move to and select it. When a frame is selected, I can click and drag to move its position, or click the small minus button to remove it. You cannot remove the start and end frames However, you can edit them and remove their content completely. Now we have two blank frames, one at the beginning and one at the end. Let's put a sine wave in the first frame and some noise in the 256th. We can either drag the cursor or use the wavetable position knob to see the morphing between the two frames. This is spectral morph, and this is crossfade. Let's pick a frame somewhere in the middle. If I press the plus button or simply double click, I've now created a new frame. Let's edit that frame. Firstly, let's redraw the waveform, and then let's play with the harmonics a little. We can add as many frames as we like, and we can swap between the morph modes to retrieve different kinds of information. Frames can be reordered just by clicking and dragging them around. Very quickly, we can build up a complex wavetable. Let's add some modulation to this and see what happens. We can resize and drag the wavetable window within the confines of the impOSCar3 window. This allows us to perform instrument changes while still editing our wavetable. impOSCar is provided with over 100 wavetable presets. Let's load one up. Let's change our second oscillator to a wavetable as well, and move over to the Wavetable Editor. By pressing Get Oscillator 1, we copy over the wavetable information from that oscillator. Now we've got two wavetable oscillators, let's have a look at the user LFOs. The user LFOs have a simpler version of the wavetable interface. LFOs can only have two frames, a start and an end, and those frames are created by clicking and dragging points. I double click to add a point, and I can drag it anywhere. If I click and drag on the line between 2 points, I can control its curve. The grid is used for snapping. If I grab a point and hold down Command or Control, it will snap. This allows us to make time-synchronized LFOs with ease. The controls on the left-hand side are the position of the LFO, its speed, and its intro. User LFO presets are also provided. User LFOs may seem simple, but they can create incredibly complex modulations that can be used for a wide variety of sources. Now that we've created our patch, we can save it using the browser system. Let's click the Save icon and then fill in the relevant information. Within the browser, we can also load any of the hundreds of presets that come with impOSCar3. They're sorted by a number of categories, types, and timbres. It's worth exploring a wide range of presets, and auditioning within the browser is available. So now it's time for you to use impOSCar3. We're sure you'll make some amazing things with it. Thanks for watching.